What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So there are a lot of things that spark a lot of passionate opinions in the Pokemon franchise. Whether it's your favorite starter, favorite legendary, or even your favorite evil team, Pokemon fans are very opinionated and they'll let you know about it. However, there might not be anything that sparks more discussion among the Pokemon fanbase than the question, what's the best Pokemon generation? While there is no one definitive answer, everyone with an opinion on the subject truly believes that their favorite is the best, and today I'm going to give you my top 5 Pokemon generations. Now, even though I obviously have a favorite and a least favorite, there isn't a single generation of Pokemon I don't enjoy. Even the ones that didn't make the list, which I will briefly talk about, I still like, and this list is simply constructed of my own personal opinions and preferences. And also, as a disclaimer for the purpose of this video, I am only going to be considering the main featured games of each generation, and remakes will not be counted. So for instance, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum will be the only games considered for Generation 4 because even though Heart Gold and Soul Silver were released during this generation, they are, for all intents and purposes, a Gen 2 game, just with a new, more modern coat of paint, so they wouldn't count towards Generation 4. With all of that being said though, let's check out the list. So, fittingly enough, our first entry on the list is the first generation. It honestly was a really tough decision deciding whether or not to include Gen 1 on the list, but it squeaked in for one simple reason: the music. The music for Gen 1 in particular, aside from being good in general, has a sense of magic that can't be denied, and no, I'm not talking about nostalgia. My favorite in particular are the route themes, as they provide a captivating sense of adventure that even after nearly 20 years of listening to them, still give me chills to this day. On top of this though, Gen 1 is just really solid all the way around. It's got a great set of characters, good roster of Pokemon, an awesome evil team, a really cool Elite Four, and one of the best rivals in the history of Pokemon. It's the one that started it all, and playing through Red, Blue, and Yellow still provide a great experience even to this day. At number 4 for me is the most recent generation, Generation 7. Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon were all great games and did some great things to really improve the quality of Pokemon games moving forward, like getting rid of HMs and vastly improving character development. On top of that, the way it changed things up from the regular Pokemon formula is admirable and in most cases did a lot to improve the Pokemon experience. For whatever reason though, the one thing that keeps it lower on the list for me is the tropical setting and feel of this generation as a whole. This gets into the personal preferences thing that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but I tend to prefer regions that have a more rugged and rural feel to them rather than a tropical one, just for the simple fact that that's the kind of setting I prefer. Another thing that has a lot to do with my ranking of a generation are the Pokemon it introduced, and while there are some really good ones in Alola, there are some other dexes that I think are of overall higher quality, so that's why I ultimately settled on the number 4 spot for Generation 7. Sitting right in the middle of this list is Generation 4, and the reason why I've got it at number 3 over, say, Generation 7 at number 4 goes back to my personal preferences. The Sinnoh region is my ideal sort of region in terms of its geography, and I absolutely love the dex in this generation for both its quality of Pokemon introduced, and for the fact that it introduced so many Pokemon that evolved from previous Pokemon, which is such a cool feature in my opinion. My only real gripe is that Diamond and Pearl were by far the slowest moving Pokemon games of all time, which makes them really hard to go back to. However, Platinum did fix this issue, so it gets bonus points for that. Finally, possibly the coolest thing about Generation 4 are all of the mythical Pokemon events that it had. This was back in the day when Game Freak didn't just give us Pokemon and actually made us catch them while also giving us a small quest that gave us a little bit of exposition on the Pokemon themselves. With Gen 4 Remake seemingly on the way, hopefully they will bring this feature back, as it was an awesome part of an awesome generation. In the runner-up spot, I have Generation 6, and this pick I feel like is the most unique to me. While I think everyone for the most part liked Generation 6, no one really considers X and Y their favorite Pokemon games, at least not that I've heard anyway. However, I absolutely adore the Kalos region and everything that Generation 6 introduced. Two of the most defining features in any generation are the roster of Pokemon introduced and the new region that the games take place in, and in my opinion, Gen 6 is practically the best in both of these categories. The Pokédex, in my opinion, despite being the smallest one we've seen, has the highest quality Pokemon designs of any generation, with only a very small number of questionable ones. Additionally, the region itself is amazing for the amount of culture it brings to the table. table. The French aesthetic of the Kalos region made X and Y so much fun to play through, and while Alola did this same thing as well, before Gen 6 the culture of the Pokemon games was mostly absent aside from a little bit in Generation 2. Sure, the Gen 6 games have their flaws, but they introduced so many things that were such a joy to play through, and I absolutely loved every minute of them. Oh, and Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution's cool too. Now, if you've followed the channel for any decent amount of time, the number one pick might not come as a surprise because I've made it known before that my favorite generation is Generation 2. It's always a question in any form of media when you release a sequel to a popular movie or game, whether or not it'll be good, and while Gold and Silver are not direct sequels to Red and Blue, they are the perfect follow-up to the smash hit games that made the already incredible Pokemon franchise into an established juggernaut. Starting with the basics, Gen 2 has a great roster of Pokemon with awesome starters, great legendaries, and as I mentioned with Gen 4, some amazing Pokemon that evolved from previous Gen 1 Pokemon. Another thing I really like about Generation 2, as I mentioned earlier, is the culture of the Johto region. Now, while there isn't as much there as in Generation 6 or 7, there are still some distinct Japanese influences that really make the region enjoyable to play through. However, the one thing that puts Gen 2 over the top for me as the best Pokemon generation is its connection to its predecessor and the rest of the Pokemon world. The way that Gen 2 connected back to Generation 1 as a sort of indirect sequel was amazing, because it gave you a new experience while also continuing the story of Generation 1, which really built up an amazing story for the Pokemon world, and that story was culminated in the event of revisiting Kanto. Now, as much as I absolutely love this part of the game, I know the discussion surrounding it has been pounded into the ground, so I'll keep this brief. Just being able to travel through the region that many of us had seen prior in Red and Blue was awesome, but what made it truly amazing was the fact that it was 3 years later, so there was so much development that had occurred in both the region itself and the characters, which made the experience of going back to it truly amazing, and that's why it is my favorite Pokemon generation of all time. And there you have it, guys, those were my top 5 Pokemon generations. Really quickly, I just want to say though that I do not hate Generation 3 or Generation 5 at all just because I didn't include them on the list. Outside of my top 2, the rest were very close together, and that's just ultimately the way it shook out, so please don't be offended if either one are your favorite. If you enjoyed the video though, make sure you give it a like and let me know what you think of my list, and be sure to include your own top 5 generations in the comments below. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more Pokemon content every week, and until the next one, as always, I will smell you guys later.